hello friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. Always a great honor to be here with all of you, and especially privileged to have Tim Schwab of God Culture on with us this evening. Most of you are familiar with their work and the incredible amount of research that they put out and the fantastic collection of manuscripts, books that they publish, which are spectacular pieces of art within themselves, especially the latest that Tim has put out with all the different maps. And we've been covering the new information, and it has been mind blowing. So, Tim, how are you, brother?
I'm great, Zen. I'm great. Thanks for having us. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's our great honor, and looks like you got quite an extensive and beautiful presentation prepared for us. But before, if you would, for those that may not have known, because we do get a lot of new listeners, as I'm sure you have, just quickly share your links where people can go to support your work and hear your videos and your incredible research as well.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Well, we started on YouTube, of course, and as we got censored, not that that happens, of course, uh, we've migrated to Rumble, Odyssey, Instagram, TikTok, even have podcasts. We got a message from Mac recently that said that our podcast was number 11. I guess it was for that week or that day or whatever. But and in our category, of course, we're not fiction novels, but um, anyway, it's all found at The God Culture on all of those. So pretty easy to find. Our Facebook is The God Culture space original. And we have alternatives on Parler and Gab. We're also on TikTok, but no dancing.
Right, right.
And then beyond that, we have published now 11 books. 10 books are mostly now available. By the way, this is new. Amazon's doing this really cool program. So now we can offer these in audio book largely, most of them. So you can download it in audiobook. They're there in ebook, but the ebooks for these are actually free on our website. ophirinstitute.com has all the links for Amazon worldwide. We have expanded recently. We're now on Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and several other bookstores, some physically, some not, but you can special order through them and have it delivered to the store and pick it up. So. And then our last book, the most recent release here, is basically the ancient maps to the land of the Garden of Eden and the land of gold. And this also ties into what we've been covering the last couple of segments on the rivers from Eden, because all these lead to the same place. They've always been in the Far East. And that's not even remotely debatable based on 6,000 years of maps and history and really Bible. When we look, especially at the Hebrew, it's always led there. It always has. And it's a wonderful thing to know, because when you know, we restore prophecy. And that's where this really comes into play. And then beyond that, one thing we do sometimes quite a bit of, we get out, we tour, we get face to face with the people, and we have conferences around the Philippines, especially. The Philippines is much larger than people think. There's 7,000 islands here, and I think we've just, touched not even the surface on all of the different areas that we could just go. I mean, the rest of my life we could just spend touring around the Philippines. So,
Well, that's awesome that you are putting out the word and helping people to come to discernment on the gospel and prophecy. Can you tell us about your experience with the crowds and the gatherings, and how you see the awareness and awakening going there.
Yeah, I tell you what, Zen, this is what has been really so precious. As negative as the pandemic was, what we're finding even now compared to going out prior is we're finding a people who are more awakened. See, he works all things to the good for those who
Yeah.
love. And so what we're finding right now is there is an awakening going on, and it's very grassroots. We're not a movement. We have no desire to start one. We teach, we restore, ancient geography especially, but the Bible, and then we let them take it and they make it happen. We have people coming to us all the time wanting to start things. We have authors that are actually working on books right now that we'll publish, even a curriculum for the Sabbath. Someone's working on so that if a church gets a hold of that and wants to keep it, we can teach them how, and we can give them curriculum that they can teach. We have just so many things. It just blows my my mind, really. But it's been wonderful. The Filipino people, especially, I mean, on all of Earth, it's probably the friendliest culture. That's my opinion, and I've traveled a good bit, but not everywhere. But this people is truly, how do I say it? I guess, there is even Catholics, even Muslims. It really doesn't matter what religion. There is a kindness and a goodness here that it's been something that for me as an American, just to experience has been a blessing to me largely.
That's amazing, and what an incredible environment to be able to experience on a daily basis, and to be part of, pioneering the movement to help others awaken to the truth. And because, having left America, we're dealing with the whole woke culture is dominating here, and this is what the children are embracing. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of, it's different. It's not exactly friendly. So
Well,
um,
now, just so you know, I mean, the thing about the Philippines is that America has seeped in here. We've exported things like McDonald's, things like that,
mhm.
and movies. They don't have a really, good movie business here. They really don't have television stations like we do in the U.S. They have some, but they're far from providing the kind of content, the regular shows, all that stuff. It's really not the same thing, and that's why YouTube. Did you know the Philippines is actually in social media, and we didn't even know this when we started. It's actually number one in usage in social media on Earth.
That's amazing. No, I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. So many
So
of them
they are.
they prefer rather than watching TV, they'll go to YouTube or similar.
Uh-huh. That's a better use of your time. Well, maybe
Yeah.
not necessarily YouTube,
And
but other platforms, unfortunately. And there was a time when there was a lot of truth held here, but since they've been bought up and things have changed and the focus has changed, I received notice today of one of our videos, the War in Heaven, enmity between the sea lines, that got deleted off of YouTube for whatever reason.
wow.
So, medical misinformation, I don't understand it, but that is the thing.
It is, and I mean, they've really showed their cards, in this age, and it's just
Hmm.
so blatant now. And again, I
Yeah.
think there's a positive side because I think it serves to awaken people. I was just with a Messianic congregation just the other day, and it was really neat. I mean, we're not Messianic. We don't have a denomination per se.
Hmm.
But we do keep the Sabbath and we do keep the feast, so we have something in common, of course. But still, their leader had rejected us publicly, openly, and he's nationwide. He's all over this country, and he was telling Messianics not to watch, not to pay attention to the God culture for years. I spoke at his church just a couple of weeks ago.
Ah, nice.
And it was neat to see. But the thing is that what happens, and I know you experience this, but uh,
Yeah.
you have this denomination that has this particular doctrine, and they hold to it, and because of that one, and it might be so minute that it's
Right.
just you listen, and you're like, really, that's it? You can't think past that? But they will not. I mean, shoot, CBN invited us on for an interview, and they
Wow,
canceled.
nice.
No, they canceled it.
Oh,
They
okay.
canceled it because we're not Zionists, because we don't believe that the Garden of
Uh-huh.
Eden is in Israel.
Yeah.
So because of that, even though they agreed with Ophir, that part of it, they had a real problem with that. So they just wouldn't have us on.
Yeah, I've been banned from conferences and gatherings and networks and
Yeah,
affiliations and but truth is, in my opinion, not very well accepted by the
yeah,
world. And most people, instead of open their minds and their hearts to it, they are seeking just confirmation of the things they think they already know.
yeah.
And they just want
Exactly.
confirmation of that.
I got to tell you one thing, and most of our conferences are so overwhelmingly positive. The one that you see on screen is our largest. They're not all this large, of course. There were 5,500 people there.
Awesome.
Our average concert, or not concert, but our average conference is, maybe 200 people. It's not that big. And we have some that hit 1,000 and some that go up into the larger numbers, but that's the rarity. That's not the norm. But we were invited to speak at a church, which we don't actually do as many churches. We try to keep it in public buildings, away from any particular denomination.
Yes.
And a particular church, the pastor represented himself. He really misled us, but it's okay, because the end result it was very positive for us, because of course we prove things. So he had a tough time, but he actually attempted to ambush us. So what he wanted to do is just focus on how it's just passion that's driving this. Well, certainly there's passion. There's no doubt. But I thought passion was a good thing, last I checked.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
but regardless of that, the big thing is the guy never read any of our books. He evidently he attended a conference for like an hour, which our conferences are all day, so he really didn't see hardly anything. And he developed an opinion very quickly, but he never read anything. He never reviewed anything. And he was trying to marginalize and just take everything down. Of course, we didn't let him. but and by the end, he was so uh, silent. He was empty. He had nothing, because he really never knew what he was even talking about.
Right.
So we have those kinds of things even happen. So it's not all positive, but even that, by the end, like I didn't cover the rivers from Eden, for instance, like we've been covering here, um, because I only had 2 hours to speak, but he cut me short at an hour and a half, so I didn't get to any of that stuff, which is no big deal. It's just an introduction anyway.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but then, one of the questions that he had his seminarians ask was about the rivers from Eden, and of course, then I took 25 minutes to answer it.
Right.
So, you ask the question.
You're gonna get the answer. Yeah.
That's right. So, and I got up, I went up, grabbed my laptop and started showing them the maps of the ocean floor and everything. And, I mean, his jaw was wide open and on the floor, because he didn't think we'd have a coherent answer, I guess. I don't know. It's funny.
Well, I'm sure you blew his mind as you did all the listeners here. And so, and as you said, with coming together, it's a beautiful thing because you and I, we don't agree on everything, but
No,
we are able to come together, honor each other, respect each other, speak about the things that even in deliberation. And
that's right.
I'm learning from you. I'm hoping you guys are learning some from us, and
Yeah,
because nobody has all of the answers, and we're all still seeking and learning together. We're a fellowship. We're a body in Christ, and
that's
we
right.
should be adult and respectful to each other. And so
Exactly.
that's a beautiful thing. And I really honor and respect you, brother, that you're willing to even come on with us and to share your knowledge and your research and to
Yeah,
present to our audience because so many people, as this pastor, like to take just that little thing and
yeah,
thought he could just criticize y'all, judge you, and
yeah.
I receive so much of that, as I'm sure you have, especially in you've done so much research in a lot of the extra canonical material, and which, in my opinion, is confirming witness to a lot of what is ambiguous within the scriptures and the
Agreed.
canonized texts. And
Agreed.
so, yeah,
You can't understand so many things, and then you
right.
read in Jubilees or Enoch, and it's like, wow, that's what Genesis has always said, right? And
Yes,
so many times you can go back and you can find it in Genesis, and you can see, wait a minute, that's exactly what it said. I just wasn't reading it right. So,
right.
yeah,
Yes, and when you do that kind of thing, and I'm going to turn it over to you after this and let
it's
you
fine. It's
get
fine.
into your presentation. But when you do that kind of thing, a lot of times it does give you the answer, and having the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and a mind to understand.
Yeah.
I think that comes with an open heart and willingness to open yourself to new possibilities, which even that's what we're doing here. So let me turn it over to you, brother, and take us through your research and share whatever you have online for us.
Yeah, man. Well, we've been covering the rivers from Eden. And this is, I mean, we still call this a theory. So, anybody that doesn't agree, okay, whatever, that's fine. We're all just trying to learn in this age of increasing knowledge. We do have a very coherent theory, that's for sure. And it matches Genesis. But the big thing that we find, even going around, is most people, and I didn't even before we found Jubilees, most people don't know what the Garden of Eden represents. Even though it's in Genesis, we're not making the connection. Many will say, if only the temple were still in Israel with the Holy of Holies, right? But we have the
Mhm.
Holy of Holies. It has always been within the earth in the Garden of Eden. And we see that in Jubilees, which we covered, 8, 18, and 19, which is affirmed in Genesis because Yahuwah Elohim was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. This is where his
Mhm.
physical presence exists. And it says that in Genesis. Again, not something we really put together before. This matters because, in addition to knowing where his actual physical presence is, I mean, it's probably no wonder that Filipinos are the happiest people on earth, at least in my opinion, because they're walking on top of the Holy of Holies every day,
Yeah, that's awesome.
whether they know it or not. But Matthew 12:42 talks about how the queen of the south, which is Sheba, it tells you in the passage, shall rise in judgment with this generation, the final generation, and condemn it. We see in Isaiah 60, verse 9, that these isles play out in the last days. Their ships, the ships of Tarshish, which is never Britain in any history whatsoever. In fact, Britain and Spain well knew that Tarshish was in the Far East because they sent explorers to find it there. They knew they were not it. Um, but to bring thy sons from far, it's a promise to the lost tribes that this land of silver and land of gold is actually, it plays a role in the last days. And then even when Gog of Magog steps into Israel and takes power, it is, he is condemned by Sheba, really Dodan, not Dedan, because it's DDN in Hebrew, and it's the brother of Tarshish and Tarshish. So this nation is prophesied to rise in the last days, and literally it may be the only safe haven for believers and even the lost tribes on all of earth in the very end.
Oh, wow. No.
And yeah, maybe someday we can talk deeper about that. But and then the other thing a lot of people don't realize, because one of the first things I always hear, oh, you're looking for the Garden of Eden. Who cares, right? I mean, it doesn't matter where it is. Well, the Holy of Holies is there, so we all should care. But bigger than that, the Hebrew word gan has always actually identified that it's not just a garden. It is a garden. It's a planting of a garden. The language is very clear, and that's an accurate definition, but it is an enclosed garden. And this is where a lot of people, they're not looking for that. They're not looking for it within the earth. They're not looking for the rivers from Eden where they exist on the bottom of the ocean floor. And they do the same with the land of gold. I mean, the British especially have been sending out propagandists all along to forget that Magellan ever made a trip, forget that Columbus ever made or conducted intense research. Columbus was actually a very good researcher. His distance was off, but yeah, I mean, so was everybody's at that time. And the maps that he followed, he was very clear. He was going to the Far East. He wasn't coming to America. So now, and then we find even greater that when you find this land, which is the land of the Garden of Eden, it's the land of gold, that basically, for the same reason King Solomon got the gold of Ophir and brought it back to the temple and overlaid the walls with it. If for the same reason, what he's doing is he's copying the Garden of Eden, because the Holy of Holies there is lined with the land of gold. So it matters. In fact, it even matters in prophecy. The book of Tobit 13:17 says that the gold used to pave New Jerusalem is the gold of Ophir. So even in the end, this comes out. But the big thing is a lot of people don't realize that, Charles Darwin, was wrong.
Uh-huh.
There is no origin of species, and adaptations would never be a way to tell you where the origin of species was anyway.
Right.
So how would you know what adaptations occurred millions and billions of years ago, right? It's impossible. Right. But the bigger thing is and of course he admitted he was wrong, and yet they still teach it as fact. It's amazing. Right. So, but the reality is the Bible's always told us that when you find this land of the Garden of Eden and the land of gold, you actually find the land where Adam and Eve were exiled to, Havilah, which is surrounded by the Pison River, the first river from Eden, the land of gold, pearl, and the onyx stone, which the Philippines is number one in all three on all of earth. So what you find in Jubilees is that's also the land of their, Adam and Eve's, creation. So we have the origin of species right there.
Awesome. I have a question for you. With regard to the land there in the Philippines, is there a discovery of like ancient structures and that, because I know that's a thing, happening all over the world, and I was just wondering because it would seem like there would be a lot of history, covered over by the jungles, maybe. Definitely at the bottoms of the oceans, because we know the water levels have certainly changed, and what was once continents is now just the tops of mountains and island chains and stuff.
Exactly. Well, you see, what they have is that they have the natural history, right? First of all, if you want to study, the origin of species, right? We know there was a flood. So in the flood, land animals and humans started over, rebooted. So that's not really a measure for the origin of species. Really, it's marine life which survived the flood in mass. So if we can track marine biodiversity on all of Earth, you can actually narrow down the land of creation, the origin of species. So if you look at news reports, marine biologists, over 120 marine biologists have released in the last decade in science journals all over the place that the Philippines is actually, we have the Coral Triangle here, which includes all the way down to Australia. And that is on all of Earth, the center of marine biodiversity. However, within that triangle, the Philippines is the epicenter of marine
Wow.
biodiversity on all of Earth. And so it actually fits. That's exactly what we should find in the land of creation.
Yeah, I would think also that, with it being the place of paradise, that the land, the creatures, and all of that, the diversity, um, that would be an awesome experience, and definitely a lot grows there.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you know better than all of us do about the diversity as the plants and the creatures and all of that. But certainly there are, and I've been watching people that grow their own food because I think
yeah,
this is an awesome skill set. It's something that I think all people should learn now, especially since we can't trust, grocery stores and here in America, especially the fast food and all that.
it's true.
Um, but there are people a lot that they have incredible techniques of growing, and a lot of are from that area of the world, the Far East, and they show things like red pineapples and all these different
Yeah,
guavas and a wide spectrum of, where we have fruits here. It seems like maybe 4 or 5 different varieties. There seems to be a lot of much more diversity, and and I'm asking you if that's your experience there, being in the Philippines. Certainly you told us about the lancones, which ever since you have mentioned that, I've had a desire, to try them, and if I ever get a chance, I will.
you would.
That's going to be awesome
Yeah,
experience.
you would love them, man. They have such a great taste. There's so many fruits here. I just it blows you away. And
Right.
most people have them growing in their yards. Most Filipinos around. I mean, obviously you have Manila and areas like that, but even in Manila, if they have a yard, they'll still grow. Something.
Yes.
Even in our yard, we have banana trees, saba, we call it. We have
Nice.
jackfruit trees. Have you ever seen a jackfruit?
No.
It's as big as a watermelon, and it grows on a tree.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
and it's full
Yeah.
of yeah, it's
I was
amazing.
just going to say, I'm sure that feeds a lot of people too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And they have a lot of superfoods here that, I mean, Anna and I used to take this stuff in America called Zeal for Life. It's just vitamins basically, but superfoods and super vitamins. And one of the key ingredients was moringa.
That's awesome.
Uh,
Do you have a large garden, or are you guys growing a lot?
not not
Well,
yet.
probably more and more as you stay there.
Yeah, well, when we first occupied our lot, we planted a bunch of things. We've been growing a lot of things, but as construction is going on, we keep taking up more of the lot. So we have a
Uh-huh.
lot less now. But at one time, we had over 50 banana trees here.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Can't
So,
even imagine. That's awesome.
and there's nothing like growing your own, anything, and then you partake of it, and it's like,
Right.
wow, this is actually really good. The fruit of your labor, right? So it's cool.
Yes. Yes.
So you have that
Well,
stuff.
I don't want to disrupt your
No, this
focus and
this
your
is a conversation, man.
direction. So
Yeah, no.
yeah.
Ask questions anytime. This is good. It's a good track because there's so much to learn about this area. One of the other things is the history here is so deep and so rich that the Spanish had to erase the local history completely, and they did. But even the Spanish history that survives refers to this as Ophir and Tarshish many times for centuries. They knew it. They well knew that they came to the land of gold, and the gold finds here were so massive. But it was unique because they were finding alluvial gold deposits sitting on the ground and
Right.
beneath the surface. So it's really a different animal. So when we think about, I know I was on one show and the host asks, well, do you have any archaeology of the Garden of Eden? And it's like, think about what you just asked, right?
Mhm.
You're looking for fruit and trees. So,
Right.
but the reality is the Philippines is more of an authentic history, where even though the Spanish drew them wearing as much as $1.5 million of gold, they're walking around barefoot.
Hmm.
So it was not a
Hmm.
culture of excess in that way and materialism. It had a root culture, and it was because there's so much here, not just what you plant, but the fish population here is amazing. If you look at the South China Sea and the West Philippine Sea, that actually on all of Earth is the most abundant fishing ground anywhere.
That I would love that just for that,
Yeah.
being able to get fresh fish directly from the sea. And it seems like the land there maybe, and I'm not positive of this, but maybe less crowded and less polluted. I don't know if that's the situation in Manila, but I would think in the rural,
Yeah.
especially from the videos that I've seen, it seems like, they have mango trees and all these different varieties, which a
Yeah.
lot I was unfamiliar with, just growing wildly. And
Yeah.
the trees are massive, large, and then the fruit crops are huge. And so that,
They
you
are.
know, we
It,
grow
it's
grass here in America.
Yeah, I know. In fact, we lived in a condo at one time, and I remember my wife, my Filipino wife, was just growing tomato plants, outside of our door, and we were cited by the community for, breaking their their rules. Oh
Right,
no. How dare a child get a hold of a tomato? No, it's awful.
right.
So, but yeah, here it's different. It's a different culture in so many ways. But I think it's so authentic because many of them grow their own food, and even though they still have grocery stores, of course, but
Uh-huh.
the markets here are amazing. Uh,
Oh, I
y-
bet.
yeah,
Fresh produce and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and the fish and just everything.
One other question for you, brother. Do you ever travel out of the Philippines for doing conferences, or have you ever uh and do you travel to America to do anything in regard to supporting your research and your work?
We haven't yet, just because we've been so inundated with requests here. But of course, in
Uh-huh.
time, Bill, we have family and stuff in the U.S., so we will be coming back at some point. And when we do, we will do some conferences for sure. So,
Okay, well, I just wanted to extend to you an invitation because we are having a conference next spring, April 12th through the 13th,
okay.
and it's going to be in Dallas, Texas. And if
Ah,
you have availability, and if have family around that area or whatever, the
awesome.
Great Wolf Lodge, we would love for you to be able to join us and to, engage in conversation with all the because everybody here loves you, of course, and the
Wow.
research that you do. And if that's a possibility, we would love to have you. So just consider.
It definitely is, and let me, yeah, let us work toward planning something like that. We really probably just need a reason to come back. We have also, of course, Filipino communities. When you go to places in California, even in Texas, Florida, they have whole Filipino communities, and they have even conference centers of sort, because there's so many in population in some of those areas. And
Uh-huh.
we've been receiving many invitations. We just haven't gone out of the Philippines yet.
Well,
So
maybe that will provide you an excuse and an opportunity. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But, definitely wanted to extend
thank
uh,
you.
that to you, brother.
I can tell you we would love to. So if it is possible, we would absolutely love to. I haven't met you yet, and I can't wait to meet you and Justin and Joy and everybody. Uh, so yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be. All right, back to you, brother.
All right, so back to the Garden of Eden. So it's the land of creation as well. So when you find this is not a minor thing, right? We're actually continuing Charles Darwin's research, but in a very credible way, because this is the actual ancient record, not trying to study adaptations and assume that that means evolution on a mass scale, which has always been nonsense and not found in the fossil record.
Yeah.
So then we know too, once again, you see Jubilees, you see Genesis really been saying the same thing. I didn't read Genesis this way before, but now I realize this was literal. It says that Adam was, exiled from the garden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So the very soil that he's going to be tilling is actually the soil of creation itself from whence he came. Wow. No wonder it's so fertile here, right? And that is also a whole nother study, because when you really look at the Hebrew, it actually tells us what color Adam was in origin.
Right.
We know David, we know Solomon, we have actual physical descriptions, and that can actually be found even scientifically. And then the last thing on the Garden of Eden, a lot of people question, and this is real important because I get it. Many think, oh, well, the garden was destroyed in the flood, or maybe, it was taken to another plane of existence or whatever. Okay, I mean, it's not that those aren't possibilities, but the Bible actually is very specific that the garden is still there. And even in Revelation, the garden is opened up. The tree of life is opened up. The tree of life is the mechanism for eternal life. If Adam and Eve would have continued to eat from the tree of life, they would have lived eternally in sin. And that's why you said that would be the worst thing that could ever happen.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Because they'd be in a fallen state and locked into that. But we know that the Messiah, he promised them he would come, be born of their bloodline, and that we would be redeemed, returned to our first estate, glorified bodies, all of that because of the Messiah. So,
amen. So all of that. So that's just a really quick review. We've covered before, but this episode, I'd like to take you into some maps, a little deeper.
Sounds good.
This is our mapping of Enoch's directions. That's all ancient maps really are. It's directions, and some cartographer later mapped it out. What surprised me is we couldn't find this. We couldn't find anybody that actually took Enoch's journey and mapped it out, and then took Jubilees and mapped it out, put it on a map. Because when you do, these actually become very glaring and very obvious where he went. So anybody saying, oh, the Garden of Eden is in Africa, for instance. Look, Africa is a beautiful place. There's no doubt. And it does have biblical meaning in many ways, but the Garden of Eden is not one of them. Because here's Enoch really coming from, we believe, the North Pole. Someone could dispute that and say, oh, it's Israel, the center of the navel. Okay, fine. It's still north of the next plot point, and that's where we start. So he's in the desert of Arabia, and he heads east. All right, so that means Saudi Arabia is not the garden. Africa is not the garden. It's somewhere else. Israel is certainly not the garden. And I know in Zionism, that's a big, big topic. Again, that pastor last Friday night, that was like his sticking point, right? He just couldn't believe that we're not Zionist and we don't say the garden is in Israel. One of the points was, don't you believe that Israel's been the blessed land since creation? And actually, no, because when you read extra biblical texts, you find out the geography there. The fallen angels, the watchers fell on Mount Hermon, which is Israel. Right. And Enoch actually calls out the area of the territory of Dan as like the headquarters of
Uh-huh.
the before the flood. So you have it defiled as a defiled land from the days of Jared all the way to the flood. And then we see throughout Scripture, Moses is very clear all over Torah that there were giants in the land, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
still defiled. Even in Abraham's day, Abraham, it wasn't replenished in Abraham's day. It was promised, but it wasn't for almost 500 years or so that Israel would enter the land. And even after that, they never fully cleansed the land.
Uh-huh.
So,
There's a text called the Colburn Bible that has a portion of it that speaks about. It's called the Scroll of Thothis, and it talks about the lost. What is the motherland? What they reference as the motherland, but they describe in that text, as you have on this map, of this land that was white, and that giants were living there and other types of hominids. It's a very interesting text, but
wow,
um, this map that you're showing is very intriguing to me, especially with the north being in the Hebrew that word saphon, which is like a hidden place, like and it's under the protection of the Most High. And I wrote that book, The Paradise, Sides of the North and the Mount
right,
of the Congregation, and that was
right,
my also, as far as discernment, was that the paradise and the diverse, as far as the quarters, the four lands, the four rivers, all
right.
connecting to that area as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny because I think actually that's something we do agree on.
Hmm.
And I know you're using Enoch language there, the four quarters, and
Yeah.
I think that absolutely the North Pole is probably where Atlantis was,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and I
Agree.
know it's in the Atlantic, right? But beyond the Pillars of Hercules, so somewhere in the Atlantic. But to us, it seems like that was Nephilim, capital really.
Right.
Ten,
Hyperborea, Asgard, all the
that's
Shambhala,
right.
they have all those
Yeah.
stories, also connecting to that area.
And that's the thing, these legends, I get it, they're not Bible. Okay, fine. And we hear that all the time, but okay, they're not Bible, but what is the basis? Where does that legend come from? Because
Right.
many times it has context.
Yes. Agreed.
And the context may actually be Bible or Bible paradigm like Enoch, but it's been embellished and things have been added over the centuries.
Hmm.
So yeah, so Enoch says that from Saudi Arabia, basically, he heads the desert of Arabia. He heads east. Okay, so Saudi Arabia, Africa out, and he goes to another desert. Well, the only desert, if you look at a map of deserts around the earth, the only other desert that qualifies is the Great Indian Desert, and that's right there. Then he goes further east. So now he's going to pass India, right? So India is not the Garden of Eden. Plus, the Garden of Eden is an island, surrounded by the Pison River, and India is not an island, right? It's mainland. It's not on the mainland. It can't be. But so when you look at it, he calls it the land of cinnamon, and you can see that Sri Lanka is known, even in Latin, as true cinnamon, is the English
Mm.
translation. But that's the origin of cinnamon on all of Earth. So literally, when
Intriguing. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, Enoch, it's like he knew things that just blow my mind all the time.
Right.
So then he says he heads to, and he lists all these spices, right? Well, gee, where could he be in the Far East at this point beyond India? How about the Spice Islands?
Awesome.
That makes sense. And then he says the whole time he was on the Erythraean Sea, right, which is a connection that is obviously a later, and that's what you see in Enoch. He's using sometimes terms, or at least in translation, we get the later term, but Enoch was, I mean, he was a prophet. He knew things. He saw all the way to the day of judgment before the flood.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So anyway, so he says that whole time he was on the Erythraean Sea, which is the Indian Ocean. And so when you look at that, so now he's going to exit the Indian Ocean. And when he exits, he's going to head northeast. So northeast, basically, of the Malay Peninsula of Sumatra. That's where you exit basically. And so as he exits, he heads northeast. Well, that entire archipelago, over 7,000 islands that span all the way from basically the south part of China, just southeast of it, all the way down to Indonesia and to the Malay Peninsula. That's the Philippines.
That's awesome.
This is nothing
That's
else.
awesome that you actually marked out the journey and have it all plotted out like this.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Enoch did it.
oh yes, but I mean, putting it on the map. That
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm very
extensive.
visual, so for me, this is how I learn. And we're
Mhm.
reading something, and we're like, well, okay, but especially Jubilees has 2 chapters of directions, right? And
Nice.
so if you jump in, here, or you jump in there, you may have a valid point, that there's a possible connection. But since he tells the directions really from the North Pole down to Russia, to India, over to Saudi Arabia, down the coast of Africa, then to the east, then beyond India, you have those directions. So if you're not plotting them, you lose where you were. And then and then it's easy, because some people even try to say, oh, well, see, Ham had part of Asia. No, Ham never had part of Asia. That was always Shem. So, but anyway, so that is ancient context from about 4,000 BC. I understand we haven't found an Enoch scroll from 4,000 BC, and anyone that ever thinks that we will is, smoking crack, because it's not going to happen.
Right.
We don't have
All of
ancient text from
those texts, have been re-scribed
right.
and passed on and retranslated. I mean,
Exactly.
passed down different people because they wore out, or even if they, were written on like the Emerald tablets, we don't have access to all
That's
of
right.
that, and so yeah,
But what's really neat, Zen, is that because Bible scholars don't know anything about Enoch and Jubilees, the book of Jubilees endorses Enoch, and it endorses all 5 books of Enoch, all 5
right.
of First Enoch. So all 5 are endorsed in Jubilees, and Jubilees says that Enoch was the first among men to write. Period.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
this is the first writing of mankind,
Hmm.
not the Sumerian tablets. I know they try to claim
Right.
that, what
Right.
that, and then they try to say, "Oh, well, see, your Bible came from the Sumerians." No, it didn't.
Right.
No, it didn't.
Yes.
The Bible paradigm is, in fact, it goes further in Jubilees and Enoch. It tells you that the angel of the presence has always kept Scripture since the first day of creation. He keeps it in
Hmm.
heaven, and that is where the perfect record remains. When he says he'll
Yes.
preserve his word, it's preserved in heaven. Our King James is not preserved. It has too many errors.
Right.
We
Yes,
can,
on the heavenly tablets.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and it's interesting to me as well that yeah, I mentioned the Thracian writings, which are 2,000 years older than the Sumerian and the first writing after the flood, but
Right.
they also support the biblical precedents, and they know about the word of the Lord, that He would be the Passover lamb. They speak about paradise
Yeah.
and the Godhead, and the other thing that is intriguing about Jubilees is in chapter 12. It speaks about the angel giving Abraham the restoring him the tongue of his forefathers,
That's
so
right.
that he could read the ancient manuscripts, the text, whatever they were written on, however they were available.
You're
But
right.
he was restored that knowledge
That's right.
and provided it to us. So
And it goes on to say that Hebrew, the original Hebrew, right? The
yes,
ancient Hebrew,
exactly. The
is
Edenic
the
language.
original language of creation.
Right. Yes.
Heaven does have a language, and it's Hebrew.
Yes.
That's the heavenly
Yes.
language.
Right.
It has been. So yeah. So Enoch, then, I mean, you follow this through. He has tons of directions. He goes to the edge of the earth. The earth has an edge. Whether anybody wants to believe that or not, that's what he
Right.
says. That's his paradigm. So if we want to understand what he's writing, we need to understand the paradigm in which he thought. And then you find that that's the basis for the entire Bible. You never find any Bible writer in anything, even in the New Testament, ever going against that paradigm that goes all the way back. This book of Enoch is the origin.
Yes.
So,
Agreed.
and again, he got his data from a trip to heaven and from the heavenly tablets that he saw, he said.
Yes.
And then you have Jubilee saying the same thing.
Yes, I wish we had, because it mentions the 366 texts. I wish we had more of those writings, and I can only imagine because he wrote directly from the library in heaven and copied those manuscripts and brought them down to his sons to be passed on generation to generation.
Exactly.
It would be amazing to see what he had access to and what he studied.
And see too how many questions get answered that in
Right.
Christianity we think are enigmas, right? That it's a
Yes.
mystery. I don't know. And you read these books and it's like, wait a minute, that's how the word crossed the flood. That's how the book of Enoch crossed the flood. Noah took it in the ark, and he taught it.
Yes, exactly.
So, and of course he would. Wouldn't any of us?
Right.
It's obvious. Yet in the church, they don't know these things because they just won't think them through. And these texts would help, even if they never see them as scripture. It would still help in their reading scripture.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes, there's a manuscript that was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls collection, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, and they mentioned many times in there
yeah,
about how they learned prophecy from the books of Enoch,
that's right.
and again, plural. And so,
You're right.
yeah,
And that's one that we've been studying. We're going to be releasing that in time.
awesome.
But there's a lot there in those texts too.
A lot. Yes, absolutely.
We've lost because everything has to originate with Israel, 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 Israel.
Uh-huh.
We end up losing all of the stuff. They think the feast started with Moses. Well, the feast didn't start with Moses. There's some that did. Passover, yeah, that's an event from his day. But even that, unleavened bread is actually, you go back to the birth of Isaac. Isaac was born on Shavuot, and Isaac
Mm-hmm.
was to be sacrificed on the first day of unleavened bread, right after
Mm-hmm.
Passover. That next
Right.
day is when he was to be sacrificed.
Yes, in the Targum it talks about how the Abraham had sacrificed on the same mountain and on the altar that Adam, when the two sons had brought their presents and presentations, offerings to the Most High, that Adam had created this original altar, and that it was also Noah when he had settled that he restored this altar, and that this was the one that Abraham had also utilized. And so that's a intriguing connection as far as the descriptions and what it says. But please, we got just a minute remaining, Tim, before we go to break. And so
Okay.
just a short comment.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? When you look at all of these ancient texts, you're restoring you're restoring what the word has always said and how it always read.
Yes.
And the strange new doctrine is what, unfortunately, we're being taught in seminaries, what pastors are learning and teaching as fact when it's not fact. It's new, strange doctrine.
Yes, agreed. Um, Real quick, one more time, just your website where people can go to find and support your work, and then we'll take a 3-minute break. We'll be back at the top of the hour, and we'll uh, get back on this teaching and your presentation.
Awesome. Just go to thegodculture.com. Everything links from there.
Excellent. And, I just want to thank you again for sharing all of your work, and your maps are
Happy to.
incredible. And I think the study of maps is something that has been a lost art, and that maps do preserve a lot of teaching and a lot of insight into history that has been manipulated, altered, misconstrued, changed, and so much has been hidden from us. And this is part of the restoration. I think the study of maps is an incredible part of bringing forth that discernment.
Agreed. Awesome.
All right, everybody, we will be back in about 3 minutes, top of the hour, and please join us for second hour, and be blessed all. We'll be right back.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
What's going on, Dad? What are you up to? I am signing these books for our mystery grab bags, of which my son Justin will give you the details. So take it away, son.
All right, so yeah, we are clearing inventory in our house to make room for homeschooling, accessories, toys, material. Of course, we have 2 growing toddlers, and we're so excited. We are offering 50% off the store value. It is a surprise grab bag, so there are 2 different ones. The little grab bag costs $17.50. You get a $35 value in there. And just to be honest, the ones that have been ordered so far, I normally throw in an extra little book where we got stickers, we have all types of different things that we have left over from conferences that we're just sticking in the bags, and hopefully we're able to get you something that is close to your interest as well, because I am able to see all of your order history, and I can tell if you are into flat earth or just the ancient biblical text, or if you're into Dr. Joy's books or Sister Diane Cover's books, we have a ton of books, over 200 books sitting in our inventory at home and at our house, and we are really trying to offload these. So you're getting a 50% off value. The big one is $50 and it contains over $105 value. So yeah, you got two options. If you want to just go for one, your chances of getting the mythical hardback signed copy from author Zen Garcia raises with the more that you get. So yeah, we really appreciate all of your support and all of your love, and we'll see you this week at the radio shows.
Thank you all. Be blessed.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for continuing to support our ministry and our work this evening. I am joined by Tim Schwab of the God Culture, and we are following up on the rivers of eating and also how he has discovered that Philippines is the ancient place of paradise and the origin for so much. And Tim has been showing that, sharing that, and proving that with his illustrations and examination of the ancient maps. And that's what he is sharing. And I'm hoping that you are all able to see clearly the work that he has on the screen and the maps that he is covering. Tim, turn it back over to you, brother.
All right. Thank you, Zen. So talking about Jubilees, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we've covered it, but the book of Jubilees, Noah divided the earth. That's what it says in Genesis 10:25 when it says, Eber had two sons, Peleg and Joktan. Peleg, in his days, the whole earth was divided. It's talking about Noah's division of the earth, not necessarily Pangea, which can't happen that abruptly, because if it did, all life would be wiped out for the most part from such seismic activity. But when you look at this this mapping and you put it on a map, and this was the amazing thing, because honestly, until we didn't understand what Jubilees was saying either. So I'm not surprised that many out there who have attempted to say, oh, well, it goes here, it goes there, because they're picking out a direction here or there. But when you map it out, it's turn by turn. So you have to remember where you are. And as you do, you see that it extends, the Garden of Eden extends beyond India all the way to the Far East, and it sets up a border. The border in Shem's territory, that's all it says. It says the Garden of Eden is just north of that border. Then it defines the border in Ham's directions, which Ham receives. The Americas are in the Book of Jubilees. And this is amazing, because most people don't realize that Noah knew about the Americas, whether Columbus did or not. So he called them, by the way, Farah, instead of the Americas, which is, I think you mentioned, even read an article one time on the show about Amaruka.
Yes.
Serpent, right?
The land of the plumed serpent, yes.
Exactly. And that's what America's named for.
Right.
It had a name in ancient times. According to Jubilees, it was called Farah. And America, the United States, was divided by Noah at the 37th parallel.
Intriguing.
Yeah. Noah, actually, he's in Cadiz, Spain. He calls it Gadir, but that's Cadiz. We know that. That's not lost to history. And then he heads west across the ocean. And he hits land. Well, he's in the Americas, right? And it calls that land Farah. And here's the thing. There's a surviving reference that if you follow the 37th parallel all the way to California, off the coast of San Francisco there are islands called the Farallone Islands. Farah. It survives. And here's what's really cool. That is the actual divide of the North from the South in the Civil War.
Wow.
How about that? Noah drew that line.
Intriguing.
These directions, as you get into it, they are so super brilliant. But he includes the whole Earth. He's, the only thing he doesn't mention is Antarctica, which is probably because, in his perspective, that wasn't a continent.
Right, ends of the earth, right.
Exactly. So anyway, so he's coming west across South America, across Africa. I mean, across the Pacific Ocean, starting in Africa and heading all the way west. And he comes all the way to the right of the Garden of Eden. So he's just east of the Garden of Eden. And that sets a border. Then he heads south a little bit, which matches what Shem says, because the garden is just north of this line that he's going to define. And then he heads west. But this border that he defines by all the mountains of fire. And when you're in that part of the world, you realize that in Javanese, they've actually called their 147 volcanoes, a string of volcanoes, Gunung Gunung Api in Javanese, which is mountains of fire in English.
Uh-huh.
So it's a perfect
the ring
map.
of fire. They, they speak about that as well.
Yeah, the ring of fire is there too, but the ring of fire goes all the way.
Yes, all around, right.
And actually, the ring of fire proves to be the Pisan River.
Oh, intriguing.
And that volcanic activity is on the bottom of the ocean floor in the midst of the trenches, all the way around. That's
right.
That's where it happens mostly, 80% of it. So this is Jubilees, and so you have Enoch and Noah agreeing, which is obvious why, because Noah taught Enoch, it's his grandfather, and they're agreeing that you're in the Far East if you're going to find the Garden of Eden. It can't be Africa, can't be India, can't be Saudi Arabia or anything else. And there's a theory for just about every area, but they're not coherent in this regard. We took you the last couple of episodes to the bottom of the ocean floor where we see this, and I know we weren't able to show this on the first video because I was still learning screen share, so it probably was my fault. But
we're learning with you, brother.
But it's all right. So anyway, so this is a map of the ocean floor from our art service, but it's based on the National Geographic mapping in 1970. You could see these pronounced, the mid Atlantic and mid-ocean ridge, which goes for 60,000 kilometers, 40,000 miles around the Earth, all the way to the Pacific, and it's downhill the whole way, and it also still functions. We covered that.
Awesome.
Science. And then that meets up with the Pisan River, which goes up the coast of the Americas. So it starts about Baja, Mexico, and goes all the way up to Alaska, over to Russia, down to Japan. It splits, it surrounds the whole land, especially the Philippines, which is Havila, surrounded by the Pisan River, the land of gold, pearl, and the onyx stone. So all of this stuff is just, I mean, when you look at the ocean floor, it all comes together because the Gihon River, the second river, has to surround essentially Africa because ancient Ethiopia is coast to coast, east to west coast. The Hiddekel, which is a big miss when they take, and this happens in interpretation, translation, they take the Tigris River and they insert it in Genesis 2. And the Tigris River, number one, didn't exist before the flood because there was no rain. And number two, the word in Hebrew is Hiddekel, which doesn't lead to the Tigris. Even Daniel's vision was in Iran when he said he had a vision by the great river Hiddekel. And that's because the Hiddekel River runs along the coast of Iran.
Yeah, this is a very cool map. And the one before of the Mariana Trench and the deeper aspects of that, that is a really cool map as well. And I'm so glad that now you have and we're blessed by you being able to share these maps and share your screen. And I know a lot of people are getting more, from the presentation, being able to see and learn from the illustrations. So.
Yeah. Well, and if any don't appear, and anybody can just go to our channel and watch the Rivers from Eden series, or at least pull it up and you can find the maps there. So we cleaned it up, and this is a cleaner view of, kind of the breakout where it goes. The River from Eden is the red. It actually starts in what we believe is Eden, which is the North Pole. The Garden of Eden was planted in the east. That's even according to Josephus very clearly in 90 AD. He never believed that the garden was in Israel. He never believed it was in India even, although he confuses the Ganges as the Pisan River because in his perspective, that's as far as he knew, had knowledge of. But when he talks of the Ganges as the Pisan, then the cartographers take that and draw the Ganges emptying into the South China Sea because they know the sun is over there. It's not in true India, the point, what we call India today. And that's because India was vast from Iran, eastern Iran especially, all the way to the Malay Peninsula, all the way up to China, and including all of the Indies, the islands of India, which were never part of India, but in an ancient view, in a Western view, they would just label all of that India. That was the norm. So
This is I was going to ask you have you heard of that book? It was written by a pastor in the 1800s called Paradise, the North Pole, the Cradle of Humanity.
yes,
That's a
yes,
very intriguing study as well. And
it is.
even though he's globe centric and supports the heliocentrist viewpoint, he at least brings forth all of the research and the information stating how in the ancient peoples and ancient cultures they support, as you have shown on, and as they do with the azimuthal equidistant map, and how the United Nations has this orientation of the world on the banner of their flag. I mean, it's all hidden in plain sight, and
Exactly.
they're laughing at most of the people.
Oh, they are on so many things.
Yes,
it's Talmudic doctrine to deceive Goyim, right? So
yes.
they're actually commanded to do it. They're thinking they're following their faith.
Right.
Really.
Right.
So here it is, by the way, on screen as a flat Earth perspective, where Eden.
I'm really glad you presented it this way.
Yeah.
It just makes so much more sense, and seeing and visualizing it this way.
Yeah. The first time we entered this whole genre, we started mapping Jubilees. We did it on YouTube, and our first videos in our flood series were this perspective. So we took Jubilees, we mapped it this way first, and then we put it on the higher resolution, flatter, map that doesn't really make sense, but but it's seamless here. And you look, I mean, this is the Oceanus of the Greeks. It's right there.
Right.
You can see the synergy is exact in orientation. So, and we also even animated it in our Bible history.
Awesome.
So it looks just a little different, but pretty close. And when it comes on screen, because there's a little bit of a lag, but which is fine. So Enoch, same thing. When he's describing the flood, his description of the flood is a description of what can only be a flat Earth perspective. He, of course, has an entire underworld. There's more to it than just a pancake, which a lot of people view flat Earth as, especially those that try to criticize it. They don't really know the perspective at all.
Right.
But yeah, so that's on screen now. So that's what Enoch viewed. And when he gets into the flood, you can't possibly read his flood account as anything but an enclosure, because he calls it that.
The lofty roof.
Yeah, exactly.
The vaulted dome of the earth, yes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you just can't mistake it. It's so super clear. And a lot of people, maybe some days then we'll get into where did Noah's Ark land in our perspective.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Love that.
Because it is, there's a lot of language there that we think, many are overlooking, even Ron Wyatt. And we actually don't find it supported that it landed in Turkey. So we'll go there sometime.
Yeah, let's do a entire show on it whenever you want. Yeah,
love to. So this is the ancient perspective, the way that they viewed maps, and what's about to come up is a teaching map, not an actual map. It's a teaching map But what you find is they drew really a flat Earth. They drew a circle, and within they had a T of rivers. There you go. So they would see, you know, the Tina River there, the Tanai River in the Scythian for basically Noah uses that actually in his directions. The Nile, you know, and Mare Magnum is the Mediterranean. So you can see Europe, Africa, Asia. Obviously, they didn't know about all the continents then. That's okay. But notice what's at the top. First, you see Oceanus going around. It's called the TO map because it's got the T of the rivers, and Oceanus is the O surrounding the whole thing. This is the mapping perspective in the first century, all the way through, and really in ancient history beyond that, but all the way through until about, you know, the Renaissance. And even though you find mappamundis that look a little different, they're still applying the same perspective. And in this perspective, paradise, and you see it on this map, again, this is a teaching map, but, and it's a teaching map from 1888, by the way, not a new one. And this is the perspective of the earth. So paradise was at the top there, which is Asia. In the center of Asia, what's there? Well, that's the Tropic of Cancer. So really what it's defining is just by the Tropic of Cancer is where you'll find paradise in the Far East, right? So it wasn't a question to them. And again, we have our book. It has 6,000 years of maps. These are in high resolution there. I don't know how well they'll reflect on YouTube, but we'll do our best here. But hopefully they'll be, you know, legible enough. I'm blowing things up quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm looking at them on Skype, and so they look really good to me. But I'm sure that people would be able to, you know, magnify and hopefully be able to see clearly.
But you know, so, and we do a lot of insets. We're blowing everything up. So, because we have these in super high resolution in a lot of cases. So we can blow them up pretty large and still maintain some, you know, a good amount of the detail. It's not so. Okay, so the next map and the next era, this is really the most critical. At the time that the Bible was being written, the New Testament was being written, this map was created by a Greek, someone who studied the Greeks. He's in Rome, but nevertheless, his name's Pomponius Mela. 43 AD is when he wrote these directions, right? Now, when he writes these directions, he tells you that what he's doing is preserving the ancient route that the Greeks had taken through time from probably 800 to 150 BC, when the Greek Empire, you know, was around. And he tells you that this is the data from, he calls them the old writers, right? So he's talking about the olden Greek writers. And we can go back in history. We actually did in our channel, and I'll show you some of those results in a second. But this is historic fact. It's record all along that's been disconnected so many ways. We've lost it. So here on this map, you see, this is a reconstruction. Again, it's covering the era from 800 to 150 BC. It is, the directions were written in 43 AD. This is a mapping by Dr. Conrad Miller. It's a reconstruction in the 1800s, but a very good one and accurate to the text. And that's the key. That's what we look for. Because what he's saying here is so specific. He identifies Christ, which is the Greek word for Ophir, the land of gold, which is the land of the Garden of Eden. So you can see on the map there's Ceres, right? Ceres is China. That's not disputed by anyone credible. It always has been. So you have China there. Then you have this mountain range, and the mountain range goes to a point. The mountains are labeled the Taurus Mountains. I know we have the Taurus Mountains in Turkey, but they actually labeled the Taurus Mountains in China over centuries. So they're just using the word Taurus. They're not referring to the same range, of course. Then you have a point there. Now that is the South China Peninsula, right? It's very defined on any map. We know exactly what's there. Southeast of that is a large island, right? Taiwan is actually east of that point, but this is southeast, and there's Christ southeast of that point, and that is Luzon Island, Philippines. That's the largest island in the Philippines right there on a map in 43 AD.
Tim, can you try refreshing? I mean, sharing your screen again, because they're still stuck on the one that has the ham, and it should have updated by now. So just want to see if that would help.
I'm looking at the stream, and the feed actually is showing that map right now.
Oh,
So.
okay. Oh, never mind. I paused it, so
No, that's okay.
okay.
That's okay.
That's my fault. Okay.
I'm watching the feed. I learned.
Okay, good. Let me refresh
I know
as well.
everybody's seeing. So yeah, so it shows you that Christ is there, and then Argyre, which is the land of silver, which is Tarshish in Hebrew, is just south of there. It's too far south on this map, and you can see how the Ganges is emptying into it. But the Ganges is out of place because true India is further over to the west, and it just doesn't quite match. And that's not abnormal for ancient maps. They didn't have the geography fully down for the area, but they were mapping things. You have this guy Ptolemy that really just kind of threw names on there at the end of his mapping. He enclosed the Indian Ocean, and well, he missed the whole Pacific and all the islands in the Far East. It's okay that he did that. I mean, his map is from before the 1st century. It's pretty good considering he threw those markers, but he didn't actually know where they were. And then Magellan corrects it, and I'll show you that. So anyway, when you read his actual directions, this is really not even remotely debatable that especially Luzon Island is Christ, is the land of gold on a 43 AD map. Some have tried, and there's actually one dude who says, "Oh, that's the Malay Peninsula." Really, the Malay Peninsula, southeast of China, and an island? Yeah, that's
right.
To track, right? So. Now, then when you get into the history, you actually find that from at least 700 BC, the Greeks are identifying Oceanus and how Oceanus, which is the rivers from Eden, leads to the land of gold. Well, what are they doing? Well, they're sharing Genesis too. They're doing it from their perspective, of course, and their Greek gods and all that stuff. We can find in 700 BC, 600 BC, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100 to the 1st century, we can find references that give markers to Oceanus in the Far East, and also, leading to the land of gold. They knew this all along. It was never a mystery. It's just a mystery in today's paradigm. So then along comes a Greek sailor, right? And once again, he's trying to preserve the directions. He actually travels as far as India. And while he's in India, he asks the Indians and the Sri Lankans, where is the land of gold, right? Which he calls Christ, which is the same as what they call Swarnadweepa. And we cover that in the book in detail. There's a whole chapter on it. Swarnadweepa is on maps as the Philippines. Boom, done. Really nothing to discuss. So they give him directions, and they tell him, well, it's in the last part of the inhabited world, toward the east. Okay, so it's east of India. It's not India. So we know that. And then it gives this plot point, and this is something that has been so missed because we don't understand the ancient perspective of Enoch. The sun has a point of origin. It doesn't matter whether anybody believes that or not. It still is a plot point on an ancient map. Okay. So here it says, under the rising sun itself. The sun rises in one place? Yeah. According to Enoch 72, the sun's rising is in the Far East, and it's the land that during Abib, the month of Abib, which is about March 15th to April 15th on our Roman calendar, during that time is the hottest month of the year because the sun is directly over that at its hottest point. Now, they say that Japan is the land of the rising sun. And the perspective that comes from is a Chinese dude said that. And yeah, from China, the sun rises east of China, so yeah, it rises in Japan first. There's nothing wrong with that connotation, except it misleads people so they think that's where the sun rises. Still in the same area, the Philippines, right, on parallel-wise, close to it, and east of continental Asia. But it's been the Philippines, because the Philippines' hottest month of the year is not July, it's not August. Those are hot months, but its very hottest month on record is March, April.
Intriguing.
Yeah, and believe me, we just felt it. We just went through that, and it is hot.
Yeah, that is so very different from us because, March is so nice here and everything's just in bloom. So yeah, that is very strange.
Well, it's
So does it get it is after March, does that begin like fall? Is the progression similar, spring, summer, fall, winter, or is it like different seasons? Like how is the rest of the year there?
well, it's hot.
Uh-huh.
It's always hot. No, there is a winter for about 2 months, and of course, you get in the higher elevations, you really feel it. They can even get snow, but it's very, very rare. But for the most part, it's hot, but it's not as hot as it is March, April. We have rainy season, and rainy season cools it off. So really from about now, rainy season just started. So May all the way through really at least the end of June, it actually gets kind of nice because the rain cools it off regularly, and it's not a little rain, it's a lot of rain. So, but yeah, so but then it experiences a very hot month in July and August, just like you do in the U.S. And then it starts to cool off, just like in Florida. We used to always notice about the end of September, early October. It wasn't that it wasn't still hot, but the humidity, goes lower, so it's nicer. It takes the edge off of the air. And same here in the Philippines. So you get to the end of September, October, it starts to get nicer. And by the time of December, it's actually really nice here, December through the 1st of March.
Nice.
So anyway, so you look at this guy. He's a Greek sailor. He wrote the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea. And so here he's saying under the rising sun itself, he's talking very specifically about the Philippines. He even places it as a marker. He says, after this region, under the very north. Now, many just gloss over that and just say, oh, yeah, under the very north. Yeah, wait, the very north is also a plot point on a map. It's called the Tropic of Cancer. So it's, the Tropic of Cancer defines what we'd call the north. And so everything above it is the very north, right? So it's below the Tropic of Cancer. Okay, so wait a minute. What islands are below the Tropic of Cancer considered to be under the rising sun? It's the Philippines, southeast of China. And there, you see it on the map here. But what happens in the perspective...
Oh, sorry, Tim. I was just going to say that the reason the Tropic of Cancer is the north with regard to the gates of heaven as described in Enoch is because when it reaches that point, it will reverse course and begin heading back south. And that is when June 21st, when it reaches the Tropic of Cancer, that around that area, that is the longest day of the year. So then it turns back and starts heading south.
What I was amazed then is that Enoch actually is far more scientific than most science theories I've seen.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
We cover the fact that we have, summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere. See, that's a real problem on a globe. It's a real, because the sun being 92 million miles away, the rays would just be flat, straight, they wouldn't be even angled. So what happens? Well, then the same point, that's the same distance from the sun in the northern hemisphere, should have the same exact climate and temperatures, other factors, rain, things like that, yes, but they wouldn't be summer and winter opposite.
Exactly.
So their whole model on a globe doesn't work.
Right.
And it's completely unscientific, just for that reason alone.
Exactly. The other thing that also supports what Enoch describes, and as I wrote about it in my Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, is the phenomena of the midnight sun and how it will stay above the horizon. You can watch the sun actually circle from east to west and north to east, as Enoch describes.
Yeah. You're right. In fact, they call it, I think they call it an anathema or something like that, where you
Uh-huh.
can chart the position of the sun in the sky, and you can see how it's higher and lower. It's like a figure eight
Right, right.
that it
Oh, yeah,
travels.
the analema. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
yes. Hmm.
So that was just fascinating because you look at that and it actually works on Enoch's model, but it doesn't work on the modern science model.
Right. Oh,
So
one
many.
other thing in regard to the analema is that when you see that figure eight, you see that the circle on the top is smaller than the one on the bottom, and it shows you that the sun is moving at a slower pace
Yeah.
as it approaches the north,
Oh wow,
and
that's
it's
I
moving.
didn't pull that out of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And so when it heads down in southern latitude, the revolution is wider and it has to cover a greater distance. And so that is also shown in the analema as well.
There you go. I mean, I know Skiba even did a model at one point. I remember seeing where he shows how it slows, but you just
Right.
explained that makes perfect sense now.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, so this guy in about 50 AD. So I mean, we're talking about the time when the New Testament was being written. Why are they in Greek? Well, Greeks are doing it, first of all, but second of all, that was really the language of the world, at that time. And that's why the New Testament comes to us in Greek. I know parts of it were likely written in Hebrew, but not all of it. And Greek is there. So then you have the other thing that Pomponius Mela said is that actually the first island, the Christ Island, has golden soil, right? So it's not just gold in the mountains, golden soil, gold just beneath the ground. And then silver soil in Argyre. And that travels through and everybody's like, oh, well, that must be a fairy tale, right? I mean, there's no land could ever have gold just in the soil. And then we see it again, actually, in his polyhistory. Salinas actually refers to the same. And we see it in other things. Pliny the Elder references it. But Pliny actually is skeptical because he doesn't believe that you could just find gold in the ground. And yet, in history, the Philippines has had gold just below the surface, even in recent times. We were just over in Negros Island, which is in the central part of the Philippines. And they had a gold rush in the 1980s, somewhere in there, 1990s. And during that gold rush, it was rice farmers who were finding gold in their rice fields just beneath the surface.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I've heard stories like
What a
that.
place to live.
Yeah, and history, when Antonio Pigafetta came with Magellan, he recorded that there was a valley of gold named Chapit with more gold than there was hairs in the head. That's a valley that's not in the mountains. And then he said that the king of Butuan brought a gift of a gold nugget the size of a chicken egg that, in fact, he just got by seeking in the ground. So there's legends that support that as well. Job goes there because Job talks about laying up gold as dust and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks, really referring to gold panning and alluvial gold deposits in the same way. So these are, Pliny didn't know this in 77 AD, but we know today with this history and even the recent finds that in the Philippines, these antediluvian deposits or the alluvial deposits, probably come from the great tsunamis that shaved and carved the mountains because it was surrounded by the Pisan River. It's being hit from all angles. And so that gold was probably shaved off and then ended up just below the flood sediment in what we call the soil today.
I have a question for you. Do you have a metal detector?
We years ago we did buy one. And because especially we just wanted to check out, do we have any in our property? Because there's so much gold here. We don't.
Uh, I
But
was just wondering
yeah,
that would be a fun thing to do.
yeah, but we're still hearing accounts of people that are, even moving back here to the Philippines, and they're purchasing, mass land, and they are finding gold. Sometimes it's considered Japanese gold, but it doesn't matter. But there's still massive gold finds here, definitely.
Awesome.
So when you go back to Magellan, what happens is Magellan corrects the record. And how historians wouldn't know this is just shocks me, because everyone should know this. Magellan says it's recorded in Pigafetta's journal, which is about as credible as you get. And he talks about how between the 12th and the 13th degree, it's where he was charting his course, and he was going to this place called Cape Gatakara or Gatakara or Katagara. Katagara is on Ptolemy's map right there, and it's placed about somewhere around the Indies, somewhere near the Malay tip. So you can see why even the British go to the Malay tip and they say, "Oh, well, see, this is the land of gold," because they're looking at Ptolemy's ancient geography that's really outdated, especially by Magellan's time. He proves it to be wrong. He even says that cape, with the pardon of cosmographers, for they have not seen it, is not found where it is imagined to be, but to the north in 12 degrees or thereabouts. So between the 12th and 13th degree north of the equator is where Magellan corrects the record, and that takes you into the Philippines. Whereas, and the map he used is the behind globe, which is on screen. That's exactly where Magellan landed, and it's exactly where he said he was going. This is what he charted the course for. So everything down in the dotted square there, that's what Ptolemy drew. He ended, by the way, his whole map ends there. He doesn't include the Malay Peninsula at all. His golden Chersonesus, he calls, even changing the Isle of Gold to a peninsula, really in fraud. But that in his perspective, he can only see as far as Burma. That's all he knew about. So he knew there was a peninsula there. I get it. And on this map, area Chersonesus is not the Malay Peninsula. There's lots of books that claim it is, which is really rather ridiculous when you think about it. But this map in 1492 that was used by Columbus, that was used by Magellan, actually shows that Burma is the area Chersonesus. So when you look at Ptolemy's map, here's what happens. You actually have this whole area here, which is the end. You see that's Burma there that says area Chersonesus. And then he encloses the Indian Ocean. Now we know it's not enclosed there, right? So no one would have actually followed this map as credible as far as geography of Southeast Asia. Yet you see the British position and the colonial position actually uses Ptolemy principally to make a case for where Ophir is, and they don't know. Ptolemy didn't know where it was. He got close. At least he was in the Far East. But what it shows here is area Chersonesus, and then you have this island called Saba Diba, right? Well, Diba in Sanskrit, in the Indian language, Diba is island. So it's Saba Island or Sheba Island, right? Sheba Island. That comes on later maps to us, actually labeling the Philippines as Saba Diba and Sheba Diba. Why? Because it's Sheba Island. See, it always was. And that's what
very interesting. Yeah.
And then
it's very cool how the ancient names also preserve this knowledge, and how you're able to, look at the names of these ancient islands and places in the Far East and make these connections.
That's right.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is. And this one's even cooler because you see next to that to the right is Ayaba Diba. That's actually an I, not an L. Ayaba Diba or Yaba Diba. And we have found maps where Yabad is actually labeled as the Philippines. But then you see this Katagara. This is the key point that Magellan made. He said Katagara needs to be corrected. Now, if you look, Ptolemy has it 9 degrees south of the equator. Columbus says it's 12 to 13 degrees north. That's a 21 to 22 degree shift to find where it is. So what you do in this square, everything in this square is moved, actually to the east some, and further to the north, 21, 22 degrees. And where are you? You're in the Philippines. And you actually find that Sabadiba and Yabadiba and Catagara are actually along the plain of what is Visayas, the central Philippines, and area Chersonesus, which is Ophir. Area is just the the Latin word for gold. It's not a peninsula, never was. Ptolemy was wrong on that. But area is Ophir. And so Ophir is Luzon Island, Philippines, which is the northern island and the large island, which is known as Ophir on maps, even from the Spanish, and never really a surprise to history. Columbus knew this history well. In 124, you have Dionysius the tourist. You can see on this map, I'll just breeze through because I know we're getting closer to the end. But you can see right there, the markers are there. The Malay tip is there. You're passing the Malay tip. You're heading northeast of it, right? And you're southeast of China. Well, what's there? That's called the Philippines. The point, Tamus, is actually positioned there on the map with the mountains running to it, just like we saw on the other maps. And there you are. There's Christ Island, which is Ophir, which in today's terms would be Luzon Island, Philippines. We see this time and time again. I mean, we go all the way through so many maps. I'll show you a few more, and we can wrap it up because I know we're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
So in 416, you could see they're even mapping Christ River, but it's actually an island. But you're getting the point is it's southeast of China again. And that's the thing. It's just south of Tamus, that peninsula that is the South China Peninsula. And then we have this map to the right here, which again, very specifically shows Sirica, which is China. Paradise, right there, is an island, again, with a barrier, so it's enclosed within the earth, and that's the perspective. In ancient times, they knew that the word Gan was enclosed garden. So there it is in the Philippines, and then just south of that, still in the Philippines, right there east of Indochina, because it's called Trans-Indi, so it's beyond India. Beyond India is Indochina. So you're in Indochina, and there's Argyre and Christ right there in the Philippines. And this is 650 AD. But one of the most profound maps, this is incredible, because here we have a Greek monk, right, named Cosmos. We talked about him before. But specifically, Cosmos draws the Garden of Eden. You can see it to the right of the map here. This is actually Cosmos' map. This isn't a reconstruction. We didn't do that because we had the original drawing here. This is incredible. So there's paradise. What are you doing when you're following it? Well, you pass the Red Sea to the east. You go past the Persian Gulf to the east. You go past the Malay tip, and then you hang a left, heading north, and then there's the Pisan River and the Garden of Eden to the right. And he specifically says below the Tropic of Cancer. Well, that's the Philippines. On every
that's
map.
very cool.
Now, this guy is famous because he wasn't just a Greek monk. He literally traveled to, we know as far as Indonesia, because he describes this deer pig, and he draws what is only found on 5 islands of Indonesia. It's a species that only exists there on Earth. So we know he traveled that far. He didn't make it to the Philippines, but he knew what he was talking about. And there he plots the Philippines as the Garden of Eden. And this map is so famous that it was followed for many centuries and actually ended up being placed in the Codex Sinaiticus in the Vatican, the Greek edition, Gracious, in 1186. So the 12th century, this is still being used as valid biblical geography in the Catholic Church. They well knew that they were coming to conquer the land of gold and the Garden of Eden. Not a mystery. Now, that is, I mean, that gets to amazing levels. We have, so many maps. Yeah. This map in 787 is one of the original maps. It's called the Betis perspective. And I'll just flip through some others. And they all draw the same, kind of the same thing. And right in the center where the page crease is, because this is 2 pages in a book. And I love that they include that because that's really cool. And again, this is super high resolution, so hopefully everybody can see it pretty well. But you can see they're drawing Adam and Eve, the serpent, the, well, apple. It wasn't an apple, but so be it.
Right.
And the tree of life, right? And it's enclosed, right, in some kind of structure. And then there's India, you know, but it's northeast of India. And then there's Christ and Argyre labeled on an island right next to it. Again, that's the perspective. But what do you have? That page crease is the Tropic of Cancer. So what happens is it's south of the Tropic of Cancer. So there you are, there, paradise and the land of gold right there in the Philippines. That's the Philippines.
Very cool.
And so you see this continue through the ages, and you know we could go through tons of these because we have lots of maps that are drawn in this.
That is awesome.
But one of the neatest is actually a Muslim map. In 1154 AD, this is Al-Idrisi, the famous cartographer. He was hired by Europeans all the time because he was so well known to put forth very credible, one of the most credible maps in his era created. So in 1154, he takes this area in the red box here, and he gives you so much detail. This is a reconstruction of it. The original's in the Arabic, and we actually, in the YouTube video, we cover it. We show you the Arabic too. So it is exactly as this says. But when you zoom in on these islands, you see them named. And they're named, there's 3 islands here named Wak Wak. Well, that's a weird name. It doesn't make any sense. What could it be? That's the name of the land of gold in Islam to the Muslims. They Wak Wak. And 3 islands in the Philippines are drawn there and labeled as the Isle of Gold. Then they have an isle called Zahab. Well, wait a minute. Zahab is the Arabic and biblical Hebrew word for gold. Ooh.
Nice.
Right there in the middle of the Philippines. Then he takes and he labels Al-Sabara in the northern part, which would be Luzon Island, Philippines, the northern large island. And if you break it down, okay, so Sabara, wait a minute, Sabara Island, Sabara Dwipa in the Sanskrit, Swarna Dwipa or Savarna Dwipa is the name of the Indian land of gold, and he mapped it right there in the Philippines.
Hey,
So
can you mention really quickly about your other book about the Solomon Islands and the gold, and because this is all connected to that as well.
It is, and that's really where the case is. These maps are really adding to the position.
Yes.
The Search for King Solomon's Treasure, it's available worldwide on Amazon and Shopee Philippines. That book is our position. That's our case. 384-page case that proves that the land of gold is in the Philippines, in the Garden of Eden, and we support it with a 300-page source book. So we show you our sources. They're available. You just go to the link. You can download it. You can look at it on your computer screen or your phone, and you can follow the source all along and say, okay, this is what he quoted. Oh, this is the original one. Wow, how about that? These are very credible sources. The most we get in debate on that position is, oh, they used a secondary source. So,
Right.
Big deal. We use tons of sources, but 300 pages of just historic, geographic sources.
And that's awesome too, because a lot of people don't realize that Solomon had extensive reach, and that he was bringing for the Holy of Holies and the design and the construction of the temple things from everywhere around the world. The cedars of Lebanon, the gold of Ophir. And so this, confirms that he had extensive outreach, and that the world at that time had greater interaction and trade than what, of course, the scientists, tell us or allow people to know and believe.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And, in all, the challenge is, we're being we're being programmed in this age in so many ways, right? To play into the New World Order and its concept. You know, why do they want you to believe that the Earth is a sphere and we're one of billions, trillions of planets? Well, because then we have no significance. And they use it to say there is no God, right? So sure, that's why it's an attack on him and his sovereignty.
Right. And they say, well, if God has all the suns that have planets around them, you know, why is he even concerned with the Earth? We're one little insignificant dust of speck in this wide, ever-expanding universe. And, you know, when you learn the truth, we are the only game in town. We are the apple of the Most High's eye.
That's right.
This, you know, this is his focus. And everything is being led to his prophetic end. And so that's why, you know, prophecy, the study of it, is important.
It is. It's super critical, and not understanding it leads to what Peter warned in 2 Peter 3, willing ignorance.
Yes.
It's sad, but it's true. And then I'll end with this one, because I know we're going to have to wrap up here. The Columbus map. One of the things we found in our research is that Christopher Columbus, or his brother, or a friend, created this map in 1490. It's authenticated by the National Library of France. Okay, so it's authentic. It's real. The only thing that's questioned is whether Christopher Columbus created it or his brother, who's a map maker. Okay, fine. What difference does it make? Same guy, same research. Or a friend using Columbus's research, because that's what's here. And in the circle to the left, the rest is a nautical chart, really. But in the circle to the left, and by the way, some scholars actually say this is the map that he used to present his case to the King of Spain. This is where he was going. He was going to the Far East, to the Philippines. So you look at this map, and this is incredible because you have on the map very distinctly, here's Africa. You go over, here's Sri Lanka, here's India. It's labeled India on the map. Here's a blow up to the right, even more. There's India, Sri Lanka. You have Burma. You have the Malay Peninsula. So if you're heading east, right, you're going to travel around all of those, which is the route they were taking at the time before they tried to take it to the west. And then you pass the Malay tip and you head northeast, and boom, here you are. These rocks of gold forming a barrier, and inside it says Paradiso Terrestro, which is earthly paradise, which is the Latin of the Garden of Eden.
Very cool. That's all fascinating. I think we have time for maybe one more, or just commentary. We've got about three minutes remaining, brother. So
okay, well, just real quick, this is our mapping of a Spanish government document. We showed you the behind globe, which was created and commissioned for the Portuguese. The King of Portugal paid to have that map created based on Portuguese data, and it shows Luzon Island as the Isle of Christ, and Mindanao as there it is on screen. Okay, so Mindanao is the land of silver, which is Tarshish. So here you go. This is Spanish, a Spanish government document found and authenticated in the Spanish library as document number 98, stamped. So this is a Spanish government document. And this is before Magellan, 1519 or so, likely before he took his journey. This is the mindset from the Eastern perspective, because remember, they already controlled Malaysia and Indonesia. They knew the area well. And they document that the Philippines is Ophir and Tarshish, plot point after plot point, traveling all the way over there. Why do they go north to China on the coast? Because they would hug the coast. That's the ancient way of sailing. That's smart. They would go up to China because they were avoiding the shoals. Off of the coast of the Philippines are major shoals there that are labeled Maniola, in fact, in 1492, Manila, duh, right? Mm-hmm. And they called them the Magnetic Isles because they were shipwrecking there in mass. So,
well, hey, brother, we greatly appreciate you taking the time to present and to share with us your knowledge and your discoveries. And again, for people that are intrigued by the maps, and it goes to support the book that Tim released a long time ago, the Solomon Island, not Solomon's Treasure.
Yeah.
What's the full title again, so people can find it?
The Search for King Solomon's Treasure.
The Search for King Solomon's Treasure. And the name of this one's The Rivers of Eden, or the full title?
It's Garden of Eden Revealed, the Book of Maps.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, brother. And, let us know about the possibility of joining us. If you can, that would be a wonderful thing. Certainly, I know it's a long trip for you, so we're no pressure, and, don't feel obligated in any manner, but we thought we would extend the olive branch to you, and to have you as part of the crew, presenting and sharing your information, and bringing your books and selling them and engaging the people. I know they would love it. Everybody would love to meet you, as would I and my family. And so if we have the opportunity, it would be an honor and a great blessing.
And for us too, man. We appreciate the invite, and if we can make it, we will. That is definitely the kind of thing we'd love to do. So
yeah.
Awesome.
Well, maybe it'll happen. We'll just, pray that it all goes that way. And again, we thank you, and everybody go to support Tim's work. You can find it, in so many places, as he mentioned, but God Culture, and he's got an awesome ministry. The people that are supporting and helping him, you guys are putting out amazing work. And so we thank you again, brother, and we'll definitely have you back on. We'll keep learning and sharing.
We look forward to it. We thank you so much for the platform, and we love what you're doing. And again, I know some viewers may not agree with every point we ever make, and you know what? It's never a prerequisite for anything we do. This is research. We're doing our best, and we all, at the end of the day, are learning and growing, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, and thank you, the listening audience, for joining us and sharing and giving us your attention and your time span. And we really appreciate all of you too, and love all of you. Without you, none of this would, really even be possible, and it would be meaningless. And well, not exactly meaningless, but it is awesome to be able to fellowship with everybody. Have a great night, everybody. Be blessed. Thank you, Tim. Shalom.
Thank you.
What's going on, Dad? What are you up to? I am signing these books for our mystery grab bags, of which my son Justin will give you the details. So take it away, son.
All right, so yeah, we are clearing inventory in our house to make room for homeschooling, accessories, toys, material. Of course, we have 2 growing toddlers, and we're so excited. We are offering 50% off the store value. It is a surprise grab bag, so there are 2 different ones. The little grab bag costs $17.50. You get a $35 value in there. And just to be honest, the ones that have been ordered so far, I normally throw in an extra little book where we got stickers, we have all types of different things that we have left over from conferences that we're just sticking in the bags, and hopefully we're able to get you something that is close to your interest as well, because I am able to see all of your order history, and I can tell if you are into flat earth or just the ancient biblical text, or if you're into Dr. Joy's books or Sister Diane Cover's books. We have a ton of books, over 200 books sitting in our inventory at home and at our house, and we are really trying to offload these. So you're getting a 50% off value. The big one is $50, and it contains over $105 value. So yeah, you got 2 options. If you want to just go for one, your chances of getting the mythical hardback signed copy from author Zen Garcia raises with the more that you get. So yeah, we really appreciate all of your support and all of your love, and we'll see you this week at the radio shows.
Thank you all. Be blessed. Thank you everybody for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.